Batman and Robin was released in 1997 and stars George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Alicia Silverstone, Chris O'Donnell, and Uma Thurman. And in this movie, the Caped Crusader must go against three of his biggest villains yet, while also dealing with trouble back home. Well, happy Batman Day, everybody. Yes, today is technically Batman Day, so that's really awesome. One of my favorite characters of all time. So how do I honor this character? How do I celebrate one of the best superheroes of all time? I watch his worst movie of all time and arguably the worst superhero movie of all time. I don't even know where to start with this movie because I relatively have no positives. I mean, there's some things where I'm like, okay, there's some bright spots, but overall, this whole movie is just an entire negative. Like, this movie reaches a new level of garbage that I don't even know where to start with this train wreck. I guess I'll start with the villains. Okay, here's what I'll say. Arnold is actually good casting to be Mr. Freeze. I know people gave him a hard time because he's not really good in this movie, and I'll talk about that. But I think he is a really good Mr. Freeze. There is something buried deep, very deep under the snow, a good performance for a Mr. Freeze by Arnold. Now look, Arnold has already played a cold-blooded killer with no emotions. The Terminator. He has played the Terminator. That's basically kind of like Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze has no emotions. He's just go, go, go on the surface, but deep down there is emotions. Kind of like in Terminator 2, kind of like Mr. Freeze in general. But instead, the way they wrote him and directed him, he was more of a cartoon than kind of this cold killer. I'll be honest, he is the best part of this movie. Now, I know how low, very low of a bar that is, but I think he really is the most enjoyable part. Without his iconic ice puns, he really, I mean, this movie would just suck even more than it already does. And the weird thing is, I know everybody likes to talk about the ice puns, and they're really iconic, but almost every line he delivers in this movie is just so weird. Like, I can't believe they wrote this dialogue and made Arnie say it.
Everything freezes. Yes, kill them! Kill them! Yeah! What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! A laundry service that delivers. Wow!
Also, why is his suit powered by diamonds in this movie? Like, what is with these villains and powering their suits with diamonds? Like, what's wrong with AA batteries? Or literally anything except diamonds. How does that even work technology-wise? How do I put diamonds in a suit and all of a sudden I can just use ice rays all over the place? That makes no sense to me. Let me just quickly move on to Poison Ivy, played by Uma Thurman. Look, Uma Thurman is a great actress. We've seen her in fantastic movies like Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction. She's a great actress. But where they go wrong with Poison Ivy, I'm going to be very specific here because there's a lot of things wrong with Poison Ivy. They really get her motivation wrong in this film. Poison Ivy is supposed to only care about her plants. Like, that's the whole thing. She only cares about Mother Nature and all that. And they showed that in the beginning of this film. But as the movie goes on, she slowly only starts to care about being with Mr. Freeze, which makes no sense to me. So she goes from, okay, let's let Mother Nature thrive, you know, I hate all these things ruining the earth, to, okay, Mr. Freeze, yeah, let's freeze the entire world. That makes, how does that help Mother Nature? That doesn't help anything at all by completely freezing the world. Like, why would she let that happen? And not to mention, in the beginning of the movie when she is Poison Ivy, she just nonchalantly just starts a fire in her lab, killing every single plant in the laboratory. That is not Poison Ivy at all. She would not just gleefully kill her plants. She absolutely hates anything happening to innocent plants. Look, we all know Poison Ivy in the comics and movies is supposed to be a seductress, but they definitely go way too far in this. Like, some of those lines are just so, like, on the nose, and that's the point. The whole good thing about, I think, a good superhero story is when you keep things, you know, a little low-key, you know, keep the audience on their toes, but instead they just go so outright with it, it just doesn't make any sense.
I'll help you grab your rocks.
And yes, look, the auction scene is awful. We all know how trash that entire scene is, but one thing I want to talk about is what happens before Poison Ivy and Bane show up to that auction, because it is actually pretty interesting.
I'll give 10,000 for the orchid, 20,000 for the tiger lily, and I bid $30,000 for the lovely magnolia!
Why are they outbidding each other if they're bidding on different women? Like, it's just small things like that in this movie that just really irk me. It's not the big things that bother me. It's always these small things that could just be corrected just a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, betting $50,000 on the lovely Magnolia. You know, like, why are you going so high? Like, you literally could have just said, hey, 10,000 like everybody else, but instead you just tried to... It's just small things. I know I'm being very picky here, but I can be because this movie sucks.
$7 million.
Let's talk about that Bat credit card real quick. Look, I know everybody's talked about it, but can we just truly analyze? Let me overanalyze how ridiculous it is that he has a Bat credit card. So let me get this straight. So Bruce Wayne decided to apply for a credit card. He put Batman's name on it, and then he had to also verify his address. So he put probably a random address on it to get that credit card to him. And somehow it's good through forever, which makes no sense to me. Then he also has to pay the bills for that credit card by putting down multiple payment dues, minimum payments, or paying off however much credit line you get. But he has to pay it in a way that he has to make sure that it's not traced back to Bruce Wayne. All that effort for what? What is the point of the Bat credit card? He says he never leaves the cave without it. Why? You're not buying anything. You're not going into like H&M to go buy something. So what's the point of the Bat credit card except being a really stupid joke that nobody laughs at? And now let's talk about Bane. Oh God. Bane is supposed to be one of, if not the smartest Batman villain ever. Okay, there's a reason why Bane is one of Batman's best villains, because as well as brawn, he also has brain. That's what makes the comic book of Nightfall so iconic, is that he outsmarts Batman. He's always ahead of him, as well as being stronger than him. That's what makes the story so interesting. And instead of that incredibly complex Bane, we get this. Like, how can you read the comics? How can you watch the animated series and come away with Bane, Bane, boom, boom? Like, how can you come away with that? Like, how can you read the comics, see his entire origin, and just say, boom, monkey business, monkey work? Like, that makes no, like, how is this part? This one angers me the most. Like, this one is just so awful in every single way, in terms of origin, in terms of characterization. Everything about this character in this movie just angers me the most, and I no longer want to talk about Bane. Thank God Nolan fixed him in The Dark Knight Rises. But this, can you imagine, before The Dark Knight Rises came out, which came out, what, 2012, this was the only live-action Bane we ever got. Think about that. Think about that real quick. Oh my God, Batman and Robin, what is this movie? And now I get to talk about our so-called protagonists, because they are probably equally as flawed, if not worse, than our villains. Clooney as Batman is just hilarious to me. Like, there is nothing about him that is redeeming in this movie. Like, nothing. There's no voice change, there's no character change, there's no detective work. Oh wait, I'm sorry. There is some detective work that we get.
I'm on break from...
Oxbridge Academy, Alfred's alma mater.
How'd you know?
It says so on the patch on your sweater.
That's another thing. Why is Bruce Wayne such a jerk in this movie? Like, I understand they're trying to create the tension between Batman and Robin, but look, the animated series did a very good job of showing why Dick wanted to leave the dynamic duo, because Bruce can be a jerk sometimes, but he also is too overprotective to the point where Dick Grayson could not thrive as a hero. So there's a reason why he left, so I understand that. But in this, he's just a complete jerk to everybody, including Alfred.
I must have dozed off. My sincerest apologies.
No, there's no apology necessary, Alfred. It's the first time it's happened in 30 years.
Like, he just sucks in this movie. He just sucks in every way. It's to the point where, like, near the end of the movie, he's like, Alfred, do I suck? Like, do I rub people off in the wrong way? Like, what's wrong with me? And then, like, Alfred's like, yeah, you suck, Bruce. Like, you are absolutely terrible as a person, and you better get your crap together, otherwise everybody is going to leave you. Like, oh God, like, it's just everything about Clooney as Bruce Wayne, as Batman, it's just awful. There's also a lot of cringe in this movie. Like, I get it, like, we know how cringy it is, but truly, like, when you look at this movie, you realize that none of these characters have any chemistry with each other. Like, it's just so bad. Like, when they first meet Barbara, I mean, look what happens in this scene. I can't believe that was filmed, processed, and then edited, and was put on the final cut of a major motion picture. Like, what was the point of that scene? What were they trying to accomplish? Was it trying to be like, all like, isn't this funny? Isn't this awkward? Look how funny and awkward these characters are. No, like, it literally accomplished nothing. At all. And it's not just them, like, even the extras, GCPD, Gordon, like, everybody in this movie is just so cringe and so ridiculously animated. Not a lot of people talk about Chris O'Donnell as Robin. Look, in Batman Forever, he was fine. But in this movie, God, I'm going back to the writing again. The writing just made Dick Grayson in this movie whiny and just so annoying. Look, Dick Grayson is one of the coolest characters of all time. He's one of my favorite characters in the entire DC universe. He's so charismatic and awesome and funny, but in this he's just whiny and arrogant and annoying, and I can't stand him.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
It's Batman and Robin, not Robin and Batman, and I'm sick of it.
So let me get this straight. Robin in this movie wants equality. He's like, hey, we're partners, it's supposed to be 50-50. But he wants his own signal, he wants his own car, and he wants the dynamic duo to be called Robin and Batman. Shut up, Robin. And of course, as if there's not enough convoluted stuff in this, we also get Batgirl in this movie. Where do I start with this character? So Barbara is not Gordon's daughter in this movie. Wow, that's nice. Instead, she is Alfred's niece. Okay, so it's interesting that we're gonna get a British Batgirl, right?
Actually, I'm looking for Alfred Pennyworth.
Oh, that's right. She's not British, even though she was born and raised in England and somehow decided to, I'm gonna visit America. And in her international flight, she decided to wear her school uniform the entire time because I guess the directors were like, okay, how do we make sure that the audience knows she's British? Okay, just let her wear that school uniform. There's also an entire side plot of Alfred dying. Like, oh my god, why is this in the movie? This accomplishes nothing. And he has the same disease that Nora Freeze, Mr. Freeze's wife, has. And so at the end of the fight, when Batman beats Mr. Freeze opens his gauntlet and it has 2 blue vials and he's like, take these and then call me in the morning. Like, why do you have the cure for McGregor syndrome in your gauntlet? Like, those are such valuable vials right there, and you're just keeping it, like, it's just right here in my gauntlet. Like, why? Keep it somewhere safe, in like some kind of safe or in your lair somewhere. But no, he just keeps it right here. For what? Why? It was only just for this part of the movie. Otherwise, there would be no reason why Mr. Freeze would keep it there. But, why am I trying to speak logically? Because this is Batman and Robin we're talking about. I mean, this is just such a ridiculous movie. This is what they do. This is how it is, and I'm just getting a headache again. This movie is truly an experience. But despite how bad it is, I highly recommend it. Like, seriously, this is a one-of-a-kind experience. Like, don't get me wrong, as bad as this movie is, it's actually really fun to watch, and I can't believe I'm saying that. This is absolutely a joy to watch. Look, in terms of so bad it's good quality, I give it an A, but as a movie, in terms of honoring the characters, in terms of dialogue, in terms of realism, in terms of everything, I'm giving it an F, an F, all the Fs. Every single F I can think of, it gets it. It is awful as a movie, but it's really fun to watch. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.